Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Vesuvius Committee of the Whole meeting, May the 23rd, 2023 at 9 a.m. in council chambers. So first, I will ask for the approval of the agenda, and there are no late items. No, thank you. Council, thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of the minutes. The Committee of the Whole minutes on May the 9th, 2023. Do we have a motion to adopt those, please? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. And first off, we have a petition, a request for a ball hitting wall. And Mr. Yanner is going to come up to the microphone. Okay. And Mr. Yanner, we would like you to summarize your ask in 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's highly reminder.
Thank you.
Members of council, thank you very much for your service. I'm here today to speak for the town's children. With no vote, no voice, and no organization lobbying for them. Why should we care? After all, the Groucho Marx says, what the future generations have done for us. Children of our town have been hit with a double whammy. First generation had cell phones, social media, and COVID all at once. And mental health professionals have been telling us that kids, especially girls, are in a crisis right now. And there's too much screen time, too much bullying, too little physical activity. Project I have in mind, at least, is a partial solution to those problems. In Soyuz, we have another problem. There are too few outdoor facilities for youngsters to play out. Seniors have all kinds of things. Youngsters, well, they've got their screens. What's one simple free activity that kids can play at requires virtually no equipment except a ball and a racket and a wall. Unfortunately, the only wall around here is in Oliver at the moment. For 7 years, we've had no hitting wall in Soyuz. And despite the other options like a swimming pool may cost 8 figures, this is like a 5-figure mini project. And about 5 years ago, I walked into Gerald Davis's office and broached the idea of a hitting wall to replace the one that had been taken away when the pickleball course came in. And he was very enthusiastic, so was the director of operations, no longer with us. But initially we chose the wrong site. We chose the east side of the tennis courts, which would have limited probably a dozen parking spots. And so the project went nowhere for the last 5 years. And then Mr. Davis suggested we use the north side of the tennis court, which has a long wall, which has recently been reinforced. And we could put 5 mini courts in there, be able to hit kids to hit the ball against the wall. And it's so close to the high school, they'd be able to use it for the phys ed departments in terms of allowing 10 kids at a time to be able to learn how to use racket sports, learn how to grip a ball, grip a racket, hit a ball. And this is the great escape for them from their screens. All it requires, I talked to Kevin of Creative Creeks, it's concrete is too heavy, it's unsafe. So if you have 2 thicknesses of 4x8 plywood, 3/4 inch, that's all you need. It could be assembled at the operations department in the industrial park, either with town employees or volunteers, and then trucked to the location and erected 1 panel at a time. And the panels are 12 feet high, 24 feet wide, 2 feet on either side for margin from the next court. And the total cost, even if we weren't able to get asphalt from existing road projects, which I was told was possible, cost in the neighborhood of $80,000. And it's timely because it's a community growth fund that's been allocated. I don't know if all the money's been taken yet or not, but 80,000 to be able to help our kids overcome some of the problems of the era they're living in. I think it's a very inexpensive solution. And basically, all we need is urgency from the council to say, yeah, this is the problem with our youth for now, this is the solution, and we can do it this summer. I mean, I've seen things fast track in this town, not as worthy as this for the children. And I talked to the principal, they wouldn't allow me to put a petition in either elementary or high school because of the school board policies. But both principals were very enthusiastic about it, thought it'd be great for the students for outdoor activity. It will encourage both physical activity and heal the mental activity. And I can't see why anyone would not be keen on getting this. Basically, your town already has the location. It's flat, so very little earth moving equipment will be required. It's a berm on part of it, so you don't need a fence at all the way around. It's saving about $30,000 there. All you need is paving, paint on the pavement, and 4x8s, 90 plywood sheets, and screws and clamps and that kind of thing. So basically, New York Times also said pickleball is going to be popular, but people are getting all kinds of injuries because they're not warming up. They have nothing to warm up on. So it's not only for kids, it's for adults, people rehabbing from injuries. Wheelchair athletes could use it. It's an incredible new facility that you can have that you can boast about with your visitors.
Thank you.
And I think the high school people would be benefit the most.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young.
Okay, you're welcome.
Your enthusiasm for this, and I think that it sounds like a good idea, but I would think that it might. Did you have a question?
Not really a question, just a comment. First, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. This wall has been talked about at the Community Service Committee. Carol Davis chairs it obviously.
Yes.
I'd like to maybe send this letter over to that committee to review again, because we have discussed it. There's a tennis group also been lobbying for a wall. So maybe between all the conversation.
Well, it's complementary to the pickleball. It doesn't take up any courts. It doesn't require people to be empty on their courts.
No, we looked on that side of the fence. So yeah, I just recommend this letter go to community service because we meet in 2 weeks and we can discuss
It
it.
could be done within a month, and it could be used in summer and used in the high school in the fall.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you very much.
Will Director King, Councillor King will put make sure this goes on the agenda. Can you do that, or
Yeah, well,
make sure that? Yeah.
Forward the letter to Gerald Davis and it'll be
Thank
on
you.
the agenda.
Thank you very much. And our next report here is the Active Transportation Network Plan, a follow-up discussion. And I will ask Mr. Brownstein to lead us on this one, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So originally, the Active Transportation Network Plan was brought to the committee back in January. The ability to bring it back at a later date to further discussion. We're hoping that council's had an opportunity, or the committee's had an opportunity to review all of the proposed projects, all 57 of them, and come up with their priority lists and how you'd like to see this move forward, potential funding opportunities, so that these inspections can be involved in the 2024 5-year financial plan session.
Okay, maybe we should ask questions. Councillor King, go
Thank you,
ahead.
Madam Mayor. You might have been gonna ask the same question. I'm reading this and it's like quick wins seem like things to do easily, but then beside it, it's got low priority. So can you explain why it would be
So
low?
the quick wins were activities we could get done, within a year. What was happening is the low priority was the public engagement aspect, so the public didn't see this as a high priority in their
I
eyes.
just want to explain it.
But it's a quick win for financial reasons.
So again, then you had some public input on this. Do I see on here where they recommend or where they like to see anything?
Yeah, so the public engagement priority is one of the fields in that spreadsheet. So rated between high, medium, and low. If you,
I mean, I see hydrogen low, but it doesn't say anything about public input.
so the PE is public engagement.
PE, right,
That's
okay.
public engagement.
Okay,
So there's 2, 4, 6 projects that were high on the publics.
And are those the 6 high priority projects mentioned here for 1.4?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And they seem to all have to do with bike lanes. Am I?
That is correct, your
Yeah.
worship. So 3 of them are bike lanes, 1's a protected bike lane, and 2 of them are actual paved trails.
Yeah. Counselor Bennett, this is your,
I got a whole book here.
go ahead.
yeah, start at the top.
You talk
Yes.
about those, what do you think about them?
Yeah, I think when we coming on the Cave Drive Trail down in 9, we come into town from 7. We come down by the museum. And then go across, and not go behind the museum, but cross where that orange light is. Go down 74th, then you got the natural trail you built on the maps, I think is perfect. Bring the trail right to town, and then we meet up with RDOS of both ends. Meet their trails, which is part of the town plan, right, is to meet up with the trails on both ends. Then they would go up 26, 28, 26 to the border, right?
Yeah, so you're talking project C9, which is 87th Street.
Yeah.
That road place to Jubilee Drive, bike lane.
Yeah. Then you come across by the, right out here. You go across with the national light is, come over here around 74. Down to 87, all the way out and go up Overlander. And Rubilia would take right out to 86.
Yep.
And then also meet where the road goes down to the park. So they can join up there. And you come up to 86, you can go a little bit further, for 26, right on the highway goes to the border. Right there, you got the golf course road, which we haven't said too much in here. I think the golf course road could be in future to make that a circle route to come in and meet our other trails. The other thing, I guess, was I liked where you put where Sessions and the new bike shop is. Where you go up there, I think that's a good pass the fire hall. There's an exit place for people to get onto the trail. Because there isn't even any place for you except for by the high school. So if people want to go cross-country bike riding, whatever, there's no way really to park up in Strawberry Creek, right? They can park right there, get on the trail there, and anybody else that wants to use the trail, they have access to Strawberry Creek without going on the highway, and they go up 115. Then when they come back down, anybody that's riding up there, all the guys that get called puncture holes, they have a nice easy access to both repair shops.
Those Sessions being one of them, and the other one down on Main Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So through the chair, Councilor Bennett, so the idea of this session is to try to come up with a list of at least 10 projects that the committee would like to see forward. So Councilor Bennett, you're kind of giving me, preferred corridors, but I'm not sure what other projects those we'd like to do, so. I really like project C6 and project C9, there's MOU 6, there's MOU 12, there's MOU 11, there's MOU 1. These are all projects within the corridor you just spoke to. So are these, are these your next year priorities? Or are these your 5-year priorities? Or are these your 10-year priorities? And that's the questions I want to kind of get the committee to think about. Is, what do you want to do next year? Like, what do you want to do in 2024? Do you want to go through this list and do all our quick wins, get them done with? And spend that $60,000, or do you want to take a larger project, say MU 6, which has already been designed at like $4.5 million and look to fund that next year or the year after? So those are the types of questions I'm trying to get the community to think about in regards to this particular avenue, in regards to the multi-use trails and the active transportation network plan. I fully appreciate your corridor. I agree. I mean, 87th through to 89th and down through Oleander is probably a key corridor. But of those projects, which projects do you guys want to see done in 2024? What project do you want to see done in 2025? What project do you want to see done in 2026 and so on?
That's where I'm kind of trying to get to, Jared, is that just to paint a picture, because I've been doing this kind of And just to where the trails are, because I think like short-term projects, I think that little one up to the, we talked about past sessions.
C6.
There's a short-term one, I think the one over by, the end of Conwood, over to 45th. Which is that trail through there, widening that out. So I think that'd be huge because 45th is gonna be a long term before that's all paved and done. Because you know anything about that intersection, so I think those are medium ones. So they have one here. Short term, I think short term going through, I can get signs from the regional district, Gerald and I have talked about that. Line utility, access road. I could hear quick wins, fine. I think a Wayfair sign would be a short-term one, store in the museum parking lot where cyclists come in on A7 for, okay, here's your fifth park, here's how you get to Gerald Park. Here's the bike stores, here's restaurants. I think that'd be important on a short term. And basically, on the long term, I think then that's where you start getting the Trestles and golf course drive and some of those other ones, right? So to me, when I look at this, we go into consideration, it's really hard to say I'm gonna spend 4.4 million or 8 million or 1 million.
Can you talk in your mic a little bit better, Mark?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, when I look at the options in consideration, we have three, we consider 3 options, right? One option is spending 10 million. Another option is spending $1,000, $100,000 annually for 10 years for $1 million. The other one is 500 to maximum 300,000. So when you're asking me that question, I'm going, I'm not sure which one of these projects. Like I can see the short term, the long term. I think depending on, I don't know what kind of road funding comes out the right. So if I say I really think that, I like the first option where we go Highway 97 Spartan. I think that's really important. And then the town on 5. And I think 89th Street, also all those that kind of there is important. It's already settled, right? We apply for this grant. So I think our community, so like you ask me which option I want, it's hard for me to say which is more important depending on the road work being done, right?
And now you know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so go ahead, Pastor John.
So I was looking through everything, in an ideal world, we have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
The numbers I have down there, C6, MU6, MU2, C9, C8, C10. So with C6, that's because of the link to sessions. And one of the things that I found with other municipalities is they have a trail, like they have, I think Chamber does it, or their version of Destination Suites, where they have an economic trail where people can go get a coffee from here, then wake up here, go to this winery, have lunch, blah, blah, blah. So, if we can do C6, that links up to sessions for bike rentals, and go Main Street for like double O's, like the 2 spots. But then if we have C8 and C9, that links up, allowing us to get to Jarrow, and then with C10, was it 70% would be co-funded with Moody?
We would ask the question, yes. So we try to get some involvement from them in regards to improvements to highway.
And that's
That's
until we
That's
get
not
15,000.
guaranteed. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not guaranteed, but I think C10 allows us to link up to the wineries on the east bench, of course, making it a safer zone, because every time I drive over that bridge and the bikes, it always sketchy down a bit. I just don't think it's as safe as it can be. And then MU6, I think is just true just with the location of the school, daycare, field. And I think it's in great need of rehabilitation in that area. So those are the numbers that.
Can I just make sure I come out them here? So I think maybe what we'll do is we'll maybe kind of write them down, and then we can kind of hit priorities and we can do timelines. That's sound okay?
So
With
it's
this,
C6, C10, MU6, correct?
what about C9? Don't C9.
C9 and C8.
Okay, C6, C8, 9,
MU6.
and NU6, so,
And then C10 is one.
yeah, 6, 8, 9, 10, NU6.
Okay, and that's about 1.3.
That's about 1.3. It's able to just do that. These are kind of your priority ones with, okay,
Which are huge asks, or else I'd just be saying letters and numbers for the next 5 minutes.
So can I ask about MU1, which is Acacia Trail? That's one of the ones that has been talked about quite often, and there was money set aside for it at one point, and I'm not quite sure what happened.
So there is some design money set aside for that, your worship, but we actually went after grant funding to fund the project, and we were unsuccessful, so that's.
All right, so it's not in there. Okay, fair enough. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead.
Mayor, I'm just wondering, because
Sure.
Councilor Bennett had a few, I'm just,
Yeah. Are
if
any
you-
of those
want me to
included
put
in
your name- your-
So he's got
ones?
E9, C6, MU6, MU12, there's
9, 6, 9, 12.
12. That was C6, then MU6, MU12, and MU11, and MU1.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And MU11.
And MU11.
I did my own by street numbers, not by UNC, so. And I can't see that very good, so. Thank you.
Councilor Rodriguez, did you have that? Yeah.
Question here in the report, where we enter, or where you indicate obviously the three major road reconstruction projects. The projects out there, so I'm looking at similar like MU7, I believe. And that it's an A2nd, MU7 there on the top.
Yep.
Those projects would take place regardless as part of the road reconstruction.
That is correct. So we would look to offset potentially costs due to accreditation grant, so we go after those projects to fund those.
Pass that one off.
Yeah, we can, yeah, that's okay, but my other ones would probably reflect Council Sean's. With emphasis on 6 and 10.
Is there quite a lot to do before you go on the highway? In other words, C10, does that take a lot longer because we have to work with highways, or are they?
Yeah, so timelines for that, your worship would probably be out there, we'd have to work with highways. The design work required would be fairly substantial, so that'd be probably a 3-part project where we go have the conversations with MOTI and then look to design their actual corridor and then go into the tender.
And at the same time, would you put in crosswalks where it was decided if you were doing that road work or not?
So crosswalks, I'm still waiting on the ministry, but they have done a safety assessment of that corridor again with 30. Volume, so I'm still waiting on that report, and they were gonna notify.
Anybody else? So this is 1.4, is that correct? If we did 6, but we've got a few more than that. So it may be, do you have any idea? I mean, obviously, we can't do them all at once, but what do you see being available, say, within 1 year? Could we do 3 or 4 of these in a year, or only 1 in a year? That's what I wanted.
So your worship, it all depends on how much the committee and council wants to spend on this. Again, you can borrow any amount of money you would like to complete these projects. You know, the quick wins of $60,000 is something you can show you're trying to achieve some sort of active transportation improvements. However, I mean, as Council Rodriguez has already pointed out, we have those 3 major road projects that are slated for work. But I mean, that's, you know, $4 to $5 million a pop. That's a significant amount of coin to look at moving those projects ahead too. So again, this is where the dilemma comes in for myself, is trying to provide council with some sort of priority The committee was some sort of party when it comes to active transportation. If we go with public engagement priorities, your capital costs are gonna be fairly significant. If you go with, the quick wins, your capital costs will slowly get more expensive. Or you can just go in to your, find one major project you wanna do next year and find needs and funding it. It's a difficult one.
Yes. So you don't have any recommendations for us to consider, because you would know the amount of work that's involved with each one. Obviously, it would be cost.
So there's multiple ways you can look at this from a recommendation perspective. Is you say that we're gonna fund $500,000 worth of active transportation work within the next 5 years. And you leave it up to staff to determine what that $500,000 is gonna be spent on, through this priority list. Once that $500,000 is spent, we try to offset some of it with grant funding, we collect you guys again for additional money to move to the next step. The other option is to say we only want to spend $100,000 a year on active transportation, and we're only gonna commit that amount of money, and then we'll look through the priorities and make that happen, whether or not we're not doing something year 1, year 2, and saving up for year 3, because that's all the money that we've dedicated for active transportation, or I try to hit all the ones that are less than $100,000 and get them off the plate for those first 5 years.
So sometimes.
Or you pick a major project and you say, this is what we're going after.
I'll give you the next one. Sometimes we have to slow down on some of these projects because something else that's more important seems to come up. So that's a bit of a dilemma right now too, isn't it? To see where we should be spending money. But go ahead. Councillor Bennett, then Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say overs and how do we know how much money we have to spend when we're saying, yeah, like Johnny said, we like to do all of these, let's just do them. What does that do to our budget? We don't have to be anybody here from accounting, like, can we afford to say to do that? Or is that totally silly? Or should we be saying right now, because of all the other projects, we should be limiting to $500,000? That's where I think I need some leadership of saying, which one of these 3 ways do we go? I'd love to go and do them all. It's like beautiful trails and bike trails and walking trails. Let's do them all, and it's over 20 years, and then cost us an amount, do them, boom, done. But is that affordable? Is that even thinkable?
Through your worship, that is a difficult question to answer. Like we do know we have a significant amount of infrastructure debts. Like we know that number is huge, and we're working away to get an asset management plan. On the flip side, we know that we're overall burden to our businesses and residents is significantly less than up the valley. So we know approximately $800. We're approximately $800 on the typical single family residence. We're about $800 lower than the average of the municipalities up the valley. So there is a lot of room to go to just hitting the average. And again, we don't know what the asset management plan is, but I can almost assure you, for sure, we have to get to at least that $800, $900 mark to start filling in all of these asset management pieces. We don't know what that number is. So if council, I'm certain administration knows we get our asset management plan, we're gonna be getting that 800 number, like almost guaranteed. So what number does council believe our ratepayers can absorb? Is just on the foundational pieces, we're gonna need to probably go to that $800. If you want some of these additional amenities, it's probably gonna be more, right? So I can't be more specific on the numbers, we don't know the numbers, but just makes sense. You see all the other municipalities are $800 more. That just gives an indication that's how far we're underfunding a lot of our infrastructure. And this hasn't been 1 year, this is multiple years. So you almost say that we probably have to go above average to start getting our assets under control. But at the end of the day. Depends what vision this council wants. If it's, we know we're gonna have to move up, and if you think that, you know, council's gonna move in that direction to do this, and on top of that, we need to. Ensure we remain an attractive tourist destination for residents both in the summer and in the winter. You're gonna have to look at not only just your standard infrastructure projects that we need, water, sewer, maintenance of just some of our standard buildings, our roads, our like other buildings. This is kind of the soft stuff that people look at, you know, they expect all this stuff, they expect to turn on the water tap and water comes out. But all this nice to have stuff is what some of the people come to the sleeves for. And how much do you want to spend on it? How much, what's council willing to, I guess, push as far as the tax increase to absorb all this, knowing you've got big chunk that we're gonna underfund. Do we want to move to? The faster we move to that average and above, the sooner we can pay for some of these things. I don't know, I'm not really answering your question, but it's really, what does council? What's the vision of the town? And because we know taxes are be increasing significantly.
Councillor King.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, my input would be, I like to some of these short-term wins, like you said, $50,000. Like if that can fit in this year, I know you're a busy man, I don't know if that's possible. But for the first, everybody seemed to talk C6. So there's 4 things under C6. That's a new development up at Meadowlake. To me, that would be kind of the first priority for next year. If we can find enough money, they do all 4 things under C6 as the short-term project. Because everybody mentioned C6 pretty well first thing off the top of their mind. And it's bike lane, it's curbs, and that would beautification of that development. So to me, that kind of makes sense from my point of view, but some short-term wins, if it fits in. Next 1 or 2 years would be C6, and then we can work through some other things 5 years out or 6 years out or whatever you want to work with.
Sure, Councilman, thank you. Further to CEO Reason's from discussion regarding the funding, I mean, I'm not holding you fast and hard to any project at this point, just what we're gonna do is we're gonna compile this and this will come back at budget time. This is when council will start making our decisions of what projects are moving forward with our. So if you decide that C6 is your priority and C6 is gonna cost us $1.3 billion, well, then something else might get bumped. Or you might have to defer something else, or you're gonna have to come to the conclusion that the taxes are gonna be brought up X, Y, and Z in order to now pay for the cost of an asset management program and capital improvement program, plus your active transportation network plan and your road rehabs and all this kind of stuff. So this is really, those discussions will start to happen. You'll be able to see the impact to your bottom line in regards to all these wish lists coming all of a sudden fruition next year. At this point, it's just creating a list so that one, I can provide this information to council at budget discussion, say, hey, C6 is $1.4 million. I would council like to move forward.
And then we can still backtrack and just do trails or the curb or any one of them. Yeah.
But if C6 is your priority for 2024, then we'll put that in the budget as priority.
So I think from personally that C10 would be a high priority, and I know it would take me time. My question is, does it have to, if you were doing C10, does it have, you have to do C4 at the same time? Does that mean there's no point doing one little part? Can it end just across the bridge there?
It can, your worship, we can scale any of these projects to make them affordable or to address certain high risk areas. Being the fact that C10 is a provincial highway and providing true bicycle access along it would be very beneficial. Kingfisher is a local road. You could probably bump it up to a collector, but there is a lot of pavement real estate there for other activities.
So I just think that for safety, you know, we know that there's a lot of people that travel that road on a daily basis, probably get a little annoyed because they're, you know, things are too slow or people are wanting to turn into a motel, that type of thing. And I think people are not as careful then when they're getting upset that they can't get from A to B quickly. So I think that to me, that part, that particular one is a high importance, and I know that it will likely take some time because you have to deal with Department of Highways first to do that. So go ahead, Councilor John.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Why don't we bring 89th Street, the full reconstruction back onto the table?
To the chair, that's a question. So Harbor Key was brought up to priority for the committee, so at our last discussion, we mentioned the road you have. I believe 92nd was then the next one we put on the list, and then we were gonna look at 89. So Harbor Key being, well, let's say 3.8 or something like that. To fund that project is a significant cost. 92nd is another, $4 or $5 million. How are you going to fund that? So those might be 3 to 5 years out, and then 89 might be 7 to 8 years out, depending on how fast the committee and council want to move forward with this project. If you decide that 89 is a greater priority than 92nd, then so be it. Still a significant project that we have to look at how to fund that, and that could be 2025, could be 2026, it could be 2024, if that's what you choose for it to be.
But just for me, like if we do decide to put MU6 on the priority list, the last thing we want to do is make all these modifications and tear it all up.
So no, if MU6 becomes a priority for council, then that project then rolls into 89 reconstruction.
So I would be greatly supportive of that.
Because we've already looked at the 89th Street. Yeah, that
It's
makes
two
sense.
birds, one stone.
Yeah. I agree. If we're gonna do something and we've got something else on the agenda at the same time, then let's do it together. So we're not. Yeah, no, I agree with that one too. So now where are we at? You've got a whole bunch of suggestions.
So just to cap that, you said you're number one.
But I'm also in the mindset where let's focus on one project that we can get done within the next. Rough timeline. But focus on one project, show me the money. Yeah.
Do we have 50,000 for the short-term wins? Do we have to still look for some?
It's currently not in the 5-year financial plan, so that would be an adjustment to the 5-year financial plan, so it'd be.
That kind of goes back to your comment, it would show like we're working in the right direction to improve bike trails and roadways, curbs. Even if only did a couple of them, maybe not all 5 or 6 of them, just 2 or 3 of them. Like 25,000 instead of 50.
Do sidewalks get included in that plan if we're doing curbs and, yes?
Depends on the corridor type and what the corridor is going to look like. I'm just trying to steer away from concrete sidewalks and try to go to pavement paths, because they're
Not bricks,
What about
Sorry?
the
not bricks.
not bricks. It'll either be pavement paths or concrete sidewalk, but I prefer the pavement path. They're a little bit more cost effective to operate and maintain.
So if C10 was chosen, and I'm not saying it is, that's the highway bridge.
Those would be painted bike lanes on the highway.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that would not include any edging or.
No, there would be no
okay,
additional.
Yeah. No, okay, thanks.
And that still leaves room for parking along there?
That's where we'd have to have to start the conversation as a ministry and finding out how much road surface they're allowing us to use, how that's gonna affect your parking availability within the corridor, et cetera. So there's a whole bunch of things that come into play, and yes, nothing is easy and nothing is straightforward. Nothing is cheap.
But they have a bike trail along the whole lake there already. Why would we put a second one on the road?
So the pitch point is the bridge deck, and that's where the biggest amount of concern is. Cycling facilities are generally put on the road unless you have a fully dedicated lane.
Well, we have a little dedicated lane.
Which we do within Pioneer Walkway, but the rest of the corridor we don't. until you bump back to Solana Key, then you're back onto it, so there's that section in there that has nothing.
And the bridge is already so narrow, you're not gonna put a bike lane on it.
No, and that's why I think this proposal is actually really good at Bear Bridge.
So what do we do now? Do we say, say we've got X amount of dollars to spend and here are our priorities if we can fit them in, or?
You could go the other way, you're gonna put something in the budget for next year, I mean, you could put 2 in or 3 in or whatever, and we could move them 5 years out. You could put 1 in and we could move it if we choose or not accept it, like you said, coming back with the report. I think they move forward, I mean, you've got a list, we could throw any one of them into 10 years out or 15 years out, like you said. I mean, it's.
Yeah, so through the chair,
It's kind of such a broad look.
and that's the complication when it comes to this is I personally don't know exactly what council or the committee want to move forward with, so I may throw a project in there that's personally beneficial to me.
Yeah,
That's not fair to council or the committee or to the community, so. It sounds like to me C6 is of a higher priority, and it sounds like to me that MU6 is of a higher priority to this committee. C9 is also up there. C9, you're going to lose on-street parking if we move forward with C9. Unless you just want to spend another dollar to then increase. So. With all these projects, there still will be further design work that needs to be done to the project with. What is going to be accomplished at the end, no different than C6, I mean, there's some road design work that needs to be done to make that project happen, so. Again, through the chair of council King, if you decide if you want to spend $50,000 a year for the next 400 years. I'm good with that, and I know what my goalposts are, that I've got to work with that $50,000.
right, yeah, it won't really accomplish anything. It's not enough money, realistically. I prefer going the other way myself, I mean, if we look at C6 coming forward in the budget next year, we could pick MU6 or whatever, for 5 years out or 3 years out, so you've got some priority what you're asking for. You're looking for 5, 10, 15 years, well, now how about if we just go 1, 5, 10? I mean, you've got a list, you can come back with this in the fall, here's our kind of priorities from today. And we can review them again 6 months down the road.
So through the chair, council King, I've got, I mean, 4 different priorities out of the committee at this point, which is what they want to see done in 2024. So do you want all 4 priorities brought back, total cost, or do you want to just see one of these move forward? These are the questions that go through my mind when I'm trying to develop these capital
I'll go
programs.
back, I like to see all C6 priorities come back, as it's all one area,
Well, it would come back as
one package.
but you want C6, Councilor
Yeah.
John wants,
Well, they all said C6, but I guess they were focused on the bicycle section.
So if you think that there are 4 main ones that we have come up with, could you come back with a pricing on that and to say, yes, here's something we could start? If there's nothing we can do this year, is there? Has to wait for next year?
yes, you would, these need to be 2024 projects.
So I'm looking at some of the quick wins too. I'm not quite sure which ones, but those might give a little boost to, you know, we can get something done and see that it's not terribly expensive. 60,000 says a total 12 projects at 60, is that 60,000 each or total 60,000?
Those quick wins for a total of 60,000.
Yeah, now there's 12 projects, so, you know, maybe that's something to start with, because that gives us something really concrete that we can see and use, and it's for a reasonable amount compared to some of the others. But, you know, I think that that MU6 and with the road work is another really important one too, and but that would be quite a lot of money, wouldn't it? If you're talking about the road plus the MU6, traffic over there. I don't know, it's hard, because you
So your mayor, I think
everybody's money.
if we
to see the priorities, so going through everybody, we know that it's C6, MU6. Are pretty much there, so those two. Seem to be. The highest, then there's also short-term wins, which is 2 out of 5. So, yeah, I know you can't vote. But it appears as though. The priorities of this group are C6 and MU6. I just do. So hard to take this back,
If you had to narrow it to two, I would say that's.
so those are
two.
2,
Yep.
and ballpark numbers, how much is?
6 million.
So how much is C6, and how much is,
C6, I think was 1 point.
sorry, so that's quite a bit, right? So you have. So I think that provides us direction, at least the first cut. If those are the 2 that council's. Interested in, we first got to determine which one is number 1, and then how fast we want to kind of put it into the budget. And you still have the ability to flex at budget time, but. So administration can put some numbers in the 5-year financial plan, some general direction would be beneficial now, but again, you can change later, but.
Well, we did talk about C6 or 224 already.
You wrote $4 million for. C6.
C6 is 4 mil.
No, that's about $500,000, sorry.
Oh,
Then do NU6 and C4.
MU6 is 4.
That was 3.2.
Oh, 3.2. MU6 is 3.2 mil. So you've got, so basically, well, by the time this goes forward, we're at least at 4. I think we're probably gonna be over 4, right, with the way inflation is.
So to Councilor Chung, yes, we will be doing road work on Kingfisher. At some point, should we be successful on funding for the water treatment.
And how much of that road work would cover C4?
The road will be completely resurfaced, so at that time you could include C4.
So it's another double one.
That's another double whammy where you can have
Mhm.
the water system offsetting some costs in regards to. Again, that one is just something that we use. That'd be put into the list no matter what, because I know it's there, so it would be just incorporated into the project. So yeah, that's another easy win for.
You know, what's the timeline on that approximately?
I have no idea when we're gonna find out about grant funding for that project.
Like roughly 3-5 years.
Probably 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So C4 will be basically ad hoc completed in 3 to 5 years because they have to do road work regardless.
So I think as we do road work and there's not, well, we can't afford that much, I think the directors indicated we'll incorporate these things into it. So see, at least, I mean, you can always pull it out, but that's, I think, the marching orders. Right?
Yeah, so just to clear, any capital improvements that will allow us to do any active transportation improvements. Active transportation improvements will be incorporated into this capital project.
So 70% provincial contribution is included in this, is that?
So that there is potential for that. It's not a guarantee, but we can apply for grant funding to offset some of these costs. So that's when you talk about big projects.
Mhm.
So C6, $500,000, you could go after grant funding for portions of that. Or you go after NU6 at 3.2 and you look at fully
Yeah.
getting $500,000 to offset, but you're still looking at 1 or 2.7 of our own funds to make that project move forward.
You have the cost for C12. That's just included wind things. Well, it's come forward from the public, so we were talking about 5 or 6, and we cut that budget down to there.
$4,000.
$4,000.
But that's already in the quick win list.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, we haven't really settled on doing 60 grand worth, I'm just wondering.
I mean, I agree with the quick wins. 6 grand is at this point now. My concern only is that most of that list is, with the public engagement, the priorities are low. But there are some that are high.
They're all sitting medium. Yeah. And yeah, does that give you enough to work with?
Yeah, sorry.
Well, so let's just recap. Okay, so. If now we look at it, we have 3 for quick wins, so that's kind of majority, so I think from our perspective, we would incorporate. Quick wins in the 2024. Then we have. I think number 2 is C6. Number 2 is C6. So that's about $500,000. So we need some general guidance. Are we talking 2025? 24?
I like to say we come back for 24. And we can always move it to 25. But when we hit 25, we miss a whole year.
Is that? We just,
Question, when is that development slated to be completed?
I'm sorry,
Do we know when the metal work, is it the phase 2 back there?
there's phase 2 and phase 3 right now. Phase 3 has built their own road. They will be finishing, they will start on the houses, probably in the fall.
Okay.
But with the market conditions,
Understand.
it's difficult to say. They will continue to build some of the homes, but whether they'll sell them or rent them is a whole nother situation, because they can't sit empty because of insurance purposes. So they're starting to rent some of them.
We just gotta go back. I need quick wins. Were we gonna try to find 50 or 60,000 this year? I mean, Jim's not here, or with
No,
the
this-
next year.
This is all 2024.
So you've got C6 as possible number 2 and number 3 is MU6.
yes,
Yeah, that's good.
so it's, we got those 3. And what we're hearing is. Quick wins, 2024, we'll incorporate it into the budget, financial plan will come forward. C6 is ballpark $500,000 at this point. That is, I only received 1 out of 5, feeling, put that also in 2024. Zach. Zach, like to go, like at least March, like again, and they can be, we could also do the subject upon grant approval, right? So it's like. Put it in 2024, we're gonna apply for some grants. If it happens, great. If not, we wait until grants come in.
My only concern with putting C6 higher up is we have the idea of building that spine network. Like through the community, and C6 kind of looks like more of an appendage. While like I would like MU6 to have a higher priority, because that really establishes that spine network that the report was talking about, where we can go from there and branch off into the rest of the community. I'm thinking like, how much foot traffic, like yield. So C6, is it gonna be used as much as MU6 or other realms? So,
Can we bring them both forward for in the budget review 24? We can always move. Then we might have more input or see how much money we have and always move 1 to 25. But they both could come forward in 24. In the budget.
Well. We can, it's 4 million.
That's fine. We get numbers.
Can you apply for 2 different projects in the same grant, same year?
No,
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year.
Okay, you're gonna have to prioritize before.
It doesn't mean you're necessarily gonna be successful either, so if these are high priority projects, really need them. Got to come to the conclusion whether you're gonna continue to wait for grant funding before this project moves forward. Or you're just gonna fight for the 11 paper project.
So am I Rick, my thought is that MU6 is probably a higher priority in your book than C6. Am I correct or not? Like,
From a personal perspective,
no,
C6 is actually more of a high priority, because I think that looks at least appealing to the entire community,
Oh.
but because there's no connection between the canal
Yeah.
trail and the community, so
It's all town.
I see that actually as a benefit more than MU6,
Okay.
because there's no sidewalk there, but getting back to Councilor Bennett and his spline and then appendices, technically, if you're going to move this through in a logical perspective, then MU6, MU7, C9, MU12, and MU11 should be your highest priority routes, because that's your spine, that's your bringing people into the corridor, and allowing them to go from there. Then you look at your expenditures, but again. That's 10 million bucks right there.
Again, well, you could still put in 24, 25, 26, 27. You're making a 5-year plan, or keep this on the side table to come back after we've done the budget for 24 and bring it back next spring for 25.
Again,
Where we could have each year done our own.
the committee likes the budget. But I also want to make sure that you understand that we have to be a little more realistic as well as to what we can afford, and a $3.2 million project in 2024 is a significant cost that we haven't saved any money for, and I don't know how our finances are gonna be impacted by that, but I will put it in the budget for you.
I go back to all our other problems. To me, this is moving on the list theoretically, but
Well, I mean, that's
Put it on
a
the
discussion. Does the committee want to have a discussion? Is this our priority for you, for the committee? Should I be backing off on our transportation until such time that these other major projects are dealt with, these major concerns are dealt with? I mean, this, in all honesty, this all takes capacity away from me in getting other stuff done, so. I like this stuff as much as the next guy. I think this stuff is very relevant and needs to be accomplished. But Councilor King told me a good point. There's a whole bunch of other stuff over here that's going on with it, so. Yeah. I can do whatever you like me to do. I can bring back whatever you like me to bring back, but again. I love these conversations. I think these are fantastic, but.
One's underground, one's above ground.
Yeah.
That's what you want to look at it.
One's over there.
so it's more beneficial to at least have one project come forward for us discussion at budget time to do with transportation. But to me, in reality, with what's happened behind the scenes with water and sewer, I think we have a lot more priorities than putting the sidewalk in or a bike trail. Not that they're not needed in the future, but you know, how much money we got to spend here next year?
So I mean,
no,
the quick wins. An easy little thing we can get done in 2024. It basically painted, so increase my painting costs, but besides that. I'm good with whatever you want to bring.
Well, when we also look back at our strategic priorities, I don't think that the transportation was on there,
No,
but there was. Two kinds of different waters that were on there. So. I echo Catholic King's comments as well, where they would just focus on the quick wins for 2024. Slot C6, MU6 for 5, 25, 26, 27, whatever the timeline is. And we can budget accordingly to save up. And then we can have a look at those in like 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, but make it known that those are our priorities.
There's also, we have to take into consideration right now, the government's given out lots of grants for active transportation. Like big time, the last couple of years, is that going to be here in 3 years? Or do we take advantage of it now?
but that's different than the grants that you're talking about in here.
That's the
Yeah.
grants that come through, that's not, that's the transportation grant.
I think if anything, maybe those grants are, I don't think they're going away. I think the lens might change with an aging demographic. We might see more grants for more wheelchair accessible, pedestrian friendly. Which kind of works with their active transportation plan anyways, but that's all speculation.
Go ahead.
That's really interesting. Chris, to see, has the ministry given any indication what the potential shelf life of the current bridge structure is?
We just had it redone.
We just.
We're probably about 70+ years now.
Don't quote me on this, but I believe a bridge deck has a life expectancy between 80 and 100 years, depending on how well it was constructed. I can ask the ministry, what I've found in the past, they don't pass the next elections. So, I'll ask the question.
It's a good feeling. My concern is we start looking at some type of pedestrian crossing over there is there's gonna come a time, and unfortunately, given the location of that bridge. When it does come time to replace, that is gonna be an absolute nightmare to try and work around as it is, and I'd hate for us to put in something that would further impede it and. Or something that would have to be removed afterwards, so.
Are you good now?
No, not yet.
C6.
So I think, well, I'm gonna put some
Good.
Several things.
Go ahead.
quick wins 2024.
Yes.
And this is where I'm reaching. I'm just gonna put some more and then beat me up because it kind of went back and forth, went from C6 to actually building the spine. I'm not sure, so I'm just gonna put down 2025. I mean, I'm reaching here because I didn't hear this. We want to put in the budget for. Again, it was 50-50 because it started C6 and it moved to MU6. We want to go with the big spine at 3.2
I
and
don't think we
U6.
can afford the big spine.
Sorry?
I don't think we can afford the big spine, but
Doesn't that include a whole bunch of other bits?
And we can change this year. It doesn't really matter. It's just you making the priority which project is probably the most important piece, and then we can
okay.
work from there. So it's well, because you're right, 3.2. That's a lot, especially in the existing grant program. If we maxed out 500, that's too. Well, by the time this gets implemented, you're probably at 3.5. You're looking for 3 million. It's lots.
And that's to go the other way, your C6 is medium, and here your MU6 is low. So to me, why would we switch it?
See,
I understand that get more used, but it shows a low priority and the other one shows a medium priority.
C6, 2025. Do I just want? I'm just gonna go on a limb here. So, MU6. We want to go 5 years out, so that would be. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, and that can change. It's 5 years, so it'd be 20. Oh, go ahead.
So I'd just like to make one particular comment on MU6. Is MU6, as we look at it from this program, as part of the active transportation network plan, and that's the offset of the trail. Now I've got to look at it from the lens of road rehab. 89th needs to be rehabbed, it needs to be repaid. So I'm gonna probably end up having to repay it before 2030. So this is where the discussions start to come in on. Do we just resurface it and then worry about putting in the active transportation aspect of it at a later date? Or do you bite the bullet, resurface it and do the active transportation all in one shot? So that then bumps up your time. This is an ever evolving little ball that's slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I'm going to pass it. So
So subject to grants.
unfortunately, you can't use grants to do operational rehab. So because the road exists, the road needs to be repaved. I can't go after grant funding to repave it. I can go after grant funding for the offset trail. So no matter what, having your repaving nights, no matter how we look at this, at some point, that's a portion of the cost in regards to this project. So this is the ball that I juggle is going, okay, so if I go through and I repave 89 because it needs to be resurfaced, and you guys want active transportation incorporated at 89 because that's the goal of the active transportation network plan, we'll have a $3.2 million project. No matter how we look at it, it's a $3.2 million project. Some of those costs are due to the fact that 89 needs to be resurfaced. Because it's getting to the point where it's aged out. Other parts are funded because it's an actual station never operated. So when we have these, and again, this is where the complexity comes in of having these conversations and trying to make everybody understand in which direction this is all coming from. It's no different than I may need to do, and again, I haven't seen my water master plan, so there may be water main upgrades that need to be done that way, but I don't know about it. There may be sanitary sewer upgrades done tonight, but I don't know about yet. So if those are coming up, and those would come up faster than your multi-use trail timeline. I'm going in and I'm rehabbing my sanitary, I'm rehabbing my sewer, I'm resurfacing the road. You want me to do active transportation at the same time. So then that bumps up all these projects up to 3 years instead of 10. You guys will be made aware of these things as they happen, but those are just some of the things that, you gotta sit in the back of your mind, like, okay, this isn't just a multi-use trailer we're looking at, this is reason why this was brought up is because I actually had to repay 89. And then when I repay 89, I want to do improvements to meet our active transportation network plan. It's the same as 92nd. 92nd needs to be resurfaced. When we go in to resurface 92nd, we want to improve it to incorporate active transportation. So that way, that's where the costs start to go up. So, go ahead.
If we do all the projects together, doesn't make it a more attractive tender.
The more work, the better, yes. But again, costs start to go up. But yes, paving contractors are usually the easiest to get in because they just come in and they quickly mill your shoulders and resurface it. When you start dealing with underground utilities, that's where it becomes more complicated when you start to destroy things, etc.
So is water and sewer under the road or on the side going down 89%?
Under the road.
Huh?
Sanitary sewer runs right down the middle of the road.
So why would we even think of repaving until we see what the sewer and water is? It would chew it up in 5 years.
And we've analyzed the sewer is fine. It'll actually be upgrades to improve water distribution, and we're just saying it could be. I don't know if it is, because I haven't seen the plan. Sanitary sewer was video inspected, it's fine. If we do any rehab to it, it'll be decision rehab, so it'll be has some place to pipe, so you won't be actually doing non-destructive. So nothing will be dug up. If we do anything sanitary. The water line, yes, you have to dig it up because there's nothing you can do about it, but yeah.
And I go back to where you're gonna see if we got any leaks or anything. I think this is repaving to chew it up. I guess that's the unknown.
But when you come to timelines, those are the other timelines that now have to be brought in the fold is if we wait till 2030 to do MU6.
We should know something about the water by then.
Oh, I'll know something about the water, but your pavement will be the point where it's starting to really fail. And then all of a sudden my road rehab costs go up because now I'm having to rip all the pavement out, redo the base, and the costs just continue to.
Well, even waiting 2 years, it costs us kind of about 15-20%.
Yeah, but I'm talking like 50%. If that's start redoing the structure.
Just part of it.
So how soon do you have to do Highway 92 or the road 92nd Avenue?
That was-
Because that was
Again, so 89th, Oleander and 92nd were all shown as high priorities. The last road assessment.
Yes.
92 is probably worst of all three.
one of them.
That is the worst of all. Roads.
So does it make sense to do the other things, the active transportation at the same time as that?
Again, active transportation is something that council needs to weigh in on the conversation. How much of a priority is it for you? What do you want to see done? You get some of these quick wins done, great. But C6, I have nothing to do in that area anytime soon. I'm not gonna be going into that area and picking up anything or anything. It's all fairly new infrastructure, so that could be something you put as a higher priority for 2025. MU1, again, there's some sanitary in there, but generally that's something that you identified in the past as something you want to see done. That's the Acacia Cork Trail.
Mhm.
These are all things, yeah. I know it's not an easy discussion, it's not an easy decision, it's not an easy direction. And I think I've got enough for now. Again, I don't wanna bog you guys down too much with this, but. Question mark.
So what we could do. So if we have 24, we have 25. And this is 500K, and as Director Bronstein said, we've got other projects on the roadside that are gonna incorporate some of the active transportation plan. So if that's kind of our marching orders, this one on its own, as we do other projects, we're gonna incorporate that into the costs. We can leave it at that, and we can come back. You know, at some point, I think the whole plan here is once we have an asset management plan, and once we have more of this information, probably in 3-4 years, we can take a look at the whole picture again.
Oh, you're just giving the thumbs up, okay.
If anything, I'd see on, but that's not under the same,
Yeah,
every ditto to what you said with NU6, right? Because we're gonna have to tear it up anyway, so we're gonna repeat it. We'll make it in line with the active transportation plan. But, yeah, I think we've given enough for priority.
Feel good?
I might just mush over we have to.
So thank you for providing all of this stuff, for us. That's what we've spent the whole weekend doing. All of this, going through all of this stuff, because it is confusing and it's iffy too, you know, how do you choose one over another? And you can't necessarily say, well, this is more important than that, because they're all important, so. And we all have different ways of looking at things too, depending on where we live or what we do, so that's okay. Please, thank you for providing this. It gives us more to think about and come back. If you think we need to tweak something or adjust it, or this isn't gonna work, so let's go with this plan.
Well, thank you, Worship, and yeah, I'll make sure that, you know, those are identified in the 5-year financial plan will be coming to council for 2024.
Good.
8. And yeah, further discussion can have that one.
Maybe just one more question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's incorporated. So as we have to. And I think it was clear in point number 3 there, but there's other things that occur. Whenever we're proceeding with design on anything, we'll look at this map and incorporate what's here. Okay, so that's what we did. Okay, so whatever it is we're ripping up, we'll consider this. We'll come back here and we'll tell you we're building a 10 feet sidewalk or whatever it is, but that's the marking that is what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, so any major capital program that is aligned with our plan, we'll do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else then? We okay? Can we go to the next?
And maybe I'll just add, so on even M06. When we put that in the budget. Do we put that contingent upon grants? So as we're proceeding with some of the stuff, we're gonna put in the budget, but if we. The way we're gonna put in the budget is say $500,000. Or they just put it in as, you know, whatever, 350,000, because, or pardon me, but 150 on the operating side and 350 for grants. So it's basically we're putting it in as a project contingent upon grant funding. Well, you know, we're picking numbers here right now. It's, you know, it's 70%.
For NU6,
Yes.
No C6.
Or
or C6.
C6, sure, C6, sorry.
Okay.
So it's basically how we're putting that project in. I think the quick wins. We're just gonna put it in. But your bigger projects contingent upon grants. I mean, you can change your mind, but it's how we're gonna be putting it into the budget, right? It's not 500K. Oh, it is 500K, we're gonna offset part of the grants.
I agree with that.
So kind of going forward based on grants. I mean, it can always change, but that is how we're gonna do it.
Okay, what happens if the grant comes in less?
But that.
That's what.
That is.
yeah, that's a problem, it can definitely be, or the cost of the project, which is probably almost more likely now. Is now 800,000, we got $300,000 in grant. That's, I think at some point we should actually have a discussion on grants, because it's. That's our problem, we don't know, and we don't wanna say no to a bunch of stuff, because then we'll be put to the bottom of the list, and maybe sometimes you say, yeah, it's gonna cost us an extra 300 grand, and still we'll subsidize 30% of the cost, that's good enough. That's the problem with grants. Like
So we should sort of be willing to.
I think
work
if
out
you
the
go
rest of the
in,
money Before we start.
it's
Yeah.
better, once we're in, and then if it's another 100 over here. I think you gotta
understand that, that's a big thing. Or it didn't.
It'll be grants next year, there's an election.
Well, it was pretty good this year. Yeah, Graham.
Provincial and everything.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
sometimes they let us do stage, like with 85th Street, we were fortunate. That, they said we could just do this piece, they could have come back and said, oh, the whole thing, we're still only giving you 500. If, we don't know.
We will reevaluate when more information comes away.
okay. Are we ready for Councillor King?
Yeah, I'll terminate.
Whether, John, thank you, all in favor. Thank you very much, everybody.
You want me? Okay.